And of course, my brother is playing the piano while I'm doing a review. Great timing. Hey guys, what's up? And today I'm going to do an album review on the new Earl Sweatshirt album. Some rap songs. And if you don't know who Earl Sweatshirt is, he is a rapper. He was once a member in the very popular rap group called Odd Future with another rapper that I admire a lot, and that is Tyler the Creator. And the main reason why I like Tyler the Creator is his personality and Flower Boy. And yeah, and then we also have Earl Sweatshirt, who had taken a really, really different path than other members in Odd Future, because instead of collaborating with more famous rappers and making more hit songs, following the trend and getting more popular, winning awards, he had taken a more dark and narrow and bumpy path because of his family members passing away, and also because of his mental illness, depression, and anxiety. And it's not fake. A lot of the celebrities nowadays fake depression and anxiety just to get publicity. And I know a few people may get offended because I just said that, but I believe so. But looking at Earl Sweatshirt and his music, you can tell it's real, it's genuine, it's 100% authentic. And that's what makes his music so emotionally intense and dark and abstract. And that's one of the most special things about Earl Sweatshirt. And yeah, it's been 3 years since we have heard an Earl Sweatshirt solo studio album, and that is I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. And once again, that album is alienating. It's sad, it's kind of dark, but no way is it as close as some rap songs, because this album is the most artistically defining Earl Sweatshirt album, in my opinion. And this album has 15 tracks, but it only clocks at around 24 minutes. So every single track here is roughly 1 to 2 minutes long. It's really short. And because of that, usually there's only one verse. There's no hook, there's no chorus, there's no break. It's just straightforward Earl Sweatshirt rapping on and on and on top of a beat that keeps on repeating, keeps on looping. And I guess if the songs here are longer, then it will feel more drab and mundane. But instead, the songs here are just roughly a minute long, so it's not that redundant, it's not that stale. And because of that, it also feels like this album is a quick and brief taste of 15 different tracks with different beats, different instrumentals, and it's like a collection, if you know what I mean. All the beats and instrumentals on this album are really lo-fi, really low-key, and very, very impeccably emotionally intense, and they are usually really glitchy, disjointed, and despondent. It's almost schizophrenic. And the lyrics here are even more abstract, really weird, and really sorrowful. You can really see the sadness inside Earl Sweatshirt when he bleeds his lyrics out of his own mind. And another thing to add about this album is that it is a really hard pill to swallow. I've been listening to this album for a very, very long time, and at first I don't know how should I feel about it, because it's not bad, but then it doesn't sound good because it doesn't sound like any hip-hop I've heard. But yeah, finally I've made up my mind, and I realized that I enjoy this album. The album starts off with Shattered Dreams, which isn't the best album opener ever, to be honest, but it's still a very emotionally potent track, I guess. We have the vocal sample of imprecise words, and that is a theme that plays out along the album. And on this track, we get these very loose and laid back guitar licks that are very dreamy and psychedelic. And it's okay. It's pretty sweet. But then the album really dives deep into the sadness, the abyss, with Red Water, which is essentially about Earl Sweatshirt's late father who passed away earlier in the year. And the sample is very miserable, it's very dragged on, and occasionally we get these very tortured screams in the sample. And I also really like the lyrics, one of the lines being, bleeding in the water, and I forgot the dream. It's like Earl Sweatshirt is referencing his dreams and his visions and his imaginations and combining it with what's happening in the reality, and everything's just a blurred mess. And, bleeding in his dream as well. And then we have the track Cold Summers, which has a very muddy and distorted bass, plus these melodies that are very glistening. And this song is actually kind of jiggly, kind of playful, but because it's so filtered, it's so muffled, it's isolating, it's alienating. And for his vocals as well, his delivery is very muffled on this track. And then we have Nowhere to Go, which is essentially the single leading up to the album. And for some reason, the sample of the track is like a moody hymn that's almost religious. It's really sad, but at the same time, it has this strangely optimistic side to it.
I gotta watch my step. I keep it quiet as cat. Yeah, I think.
And Earl's flow on this track is really simple and straightforward, and we also get these ad-libs, which feel very unenergetic, really dead inside. And at first it feels like a very, I guess, turn off of a track. But the more I listen to it, the more I think and perceive that this track is like a very sad and soaked up version of a normal rap song nowadays. And I guess it's kind of a creative way to put it. And Earl Sweatshirt also explores fame on this track and the negative things that fame brings. And the lyrics on this track is really unfiltered. It's straightforward. And that's also what I like about this album, is that Earl Sweatshirt doesn't really, package his lyrics and make it something super pretty and super poetic, even though some lyrics on this album are poetic, but mostly it's unfiltered. It's really genuine. It comes from his heart. And then we have December 24, which has these droney pianos and these skipping off-kilter drum beats. And they go together really well, and the flow of this track is really solid and cohesive as well. And then we have On the Way, one word, On the Way, plus an exclamation mark. And it is probably the most blissful track on the entire track listing, with the, laid back guitars and all. And it's an appealing track. But still, it has this sad side to it that I find almost haunting. And then we have The Mint featuring Navy Blue, which is probably my favorite song off of the entire track listing, because it has these very deep, dark, and heavy descending piano leads that are it's just sinking into the ocean. It just keeps on sinking and sinking and sinking. We have two piano lines.
Tiptoeing over more than a brick, bumping shoulders with the devil in disguise.
But the pianos aren't really explosive or dramatic or anything, so there's this really slight dash of mystery and hopelessness in the sample that feels like it's saying, yep, this is life now, and there's no changing in that. It's just that's just life, and that is it hits hard. It hits hard. And towards the last leg of the track, we hear a refrain that's kept on being repeated. A lot of blood to lead, peace to make, fuck a check. And it says a lot about the song, the album, and Earl Sweatshirt himself. And then we have the track The Bends, not the Radiohead track, but in fact an Earl Sweatshirt track that has some really moody and low-key strings. And the vocal samples are super chopped up and warped, to be honest. In fact, the entire track feels really warped. And Earl Sweatshirt kind of talk about friends and friendship on this track. And even though it feels milder than other tracks, I still like it for what it is. And then we have Lucy, which is the shortest song on the entire track list, with the super twisted and distorted and moody sample that feels very sluggish. But again, not that it's unenergetic and dead inside, but it's because it's emotionally potent. And I also like the guitars and the sample. They feel very aimless. They feel very pointless. The track Azucar is a highlight on the track list with the emotional 90s pop R&B ballad sample. That's very muffled and filtered. It feels dead. It feels like a dead, stale vocal sample that's playing in a radio in a broken transmission, like a lot of feet away, far away.
It's not a black woman I can't thank. You called crying when I told you these are last days.
And we also get these walls of glistening strings that are really emotionally intense. And again, there is a line in this track that hits really hard, and that is, "See the ghost of where I was." And Earl Sweatshirt is just really good at writing one-liners. And on this album, the one-liners are, of course, way more depressing. And then we have Eclipse, which has a very strange and weird sample. It's playful, but at the same time, it gives off this strange, ominous vibe to it. And for some reason, it feels like the title theme for some sort of logo for some sort of company in the 80s or the 90s. It's really off-kiltered. It sounds really off. And the song, and in the song, Earl Sweatshirt also explores the themes of isolation and on the track Veins. Damn, my family is just... And then we have the track Veins, which also has this 90s ballad sample, but this time it's way more slow and way more sluggish in a sad way. And there's also a line that hits really hard, and that is, "It's been a minute since I heard applause," meaning that Earl Sweatshirt had been away from the entertainment industry for such a long time, and he feels very alienated because of that. And then we have a very special track titled "Playing Possum," and it has this very psychedelic sound collage, and it is layered with spoken word passages and speech samples delivered by his mom and dad. His mom talks about family, while his dad, who was a poet, talks about refugees and borders and poor children who's in need. And this track is essentially about Earl Sweatshirt's parents. They have split up, and therefore Earl Sweatshirt made such a strange but powerful track. And then we have Peanut, which is, well, technically the last core track of the album, and it's this super noisy, deconstructed, the super experimental track. It has these piano samples, but they are very aimless. They are very lost. And we also get these weird noises that sound almost like a cow mooing. And it's almost like Earl Sweatshirt is going insane and becoming a schizophrenic after this track. And then the album ends off with Riot with an exclamation mark, which is a very clunky and distorted and glitchy instrumental closer. It sounds triumphant. The instrumentals here sound like a really happy ending. But because of that, it also feels very lonely, very alienating. And that also applies to most of the album. Yeah, overall, this album is a very hard pill to swallow because it's super glitchy and disjointed, and it's hard to, feel great while listening to the album. It really makes you feel sad instead. But that is exactly why this album is such an important rap album in 2018. And this is easily the most emotionally potent, emotionally intense, and artistically defined and refined Earl Sweatshirt album. And my favorite track here is The Mint, and my least favorite has probably to be Shattered Dreams, and I'm giving Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs an 8 out of 10. So, have you listened to some rap songs from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more.